For 3 years, Hagler saw Hearns and his future as far back as 1982. They were scheduled to meet, but a Hearns hand injury intervened.
I'm not going in there with for injury. And when I go in there, I want to be in tip-top condition and great health.
Finally, the fight was canceled. Hagler was livid.
And he was going to make $2 million. He turned down $2 million. The first beginning, Ray, he started complaining about his little baby pinky. You know how many people will give $1 million for that little baby pinky? They cut that thing off.
And come April 15, in 3 rounds, I would be the greatest.
And Tommy said, I'm going to be laying down there and his hands are going to be raised. I feel almost the same way, but when the smoke cleared, because I'm coming out smoking, as you know, but when the smoke clears, it'll be my hands that'll be raised.
After 3 long years, the war of words will be settled amidst the neon of Las Vegas, Nevada. Hagler and Hearns have descended upon Caesar's Palace to end their dispute and treat the public to the fight of the year. The hype is over, and the drama begins as we await the opening bell between 2 great champions, marvelous Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns.
And we are live from Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada, where Top Rank presents World Championship Boxing. It's time for the main event. It's scheduled for 12 rounds. Marvelous Marvin Hagler against Thomas Hitman Hearns. And look at this scene here. You know, the middleweight division has always been one of the most popular. The men are big enough to hurt. They're little enough to be quick, deceptive in the ring. Sugar Ray Robinson is here tonight. He's been voted the greatest middleweight champ of all time. How about the 2 old-timers? Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan assassin. Harry Greb, who fought the last part of his career with one eye. Then there was a toy bulldog, Mickey Walker, who lived on the fast track. And the smooth man from Argentina, Carlos Monzon, who defended his middleweight title 14 times, and that's the goal, the mark that Marvin Hagler is after. So there you have some of the great middleweights of all time. Gene Fulmer's here tonight, Carmen Basilio from Syracuse, and you've already met Jake LaMotta. Right now, we're going to meet the fighters themselves. We're going to see some of their highlights of their career, and we're going to hear them from the last moment now in person.
First, a look at the champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, the undisputed middleweight champion of the world, marvelous Marvin Hagler.
The road to the title was frustrating for the marvelous one. It was back on November 30th, 1979, that Hagler had his first shot at Vito Antuofermo's middleweight crown. In one of the most controversial decisions in the last decade, the fight was ruled a draw. Vito kept the belt, and Marvin walked away empty and bitter. But he used that anger almost 1 year later to fuel a vicious assault on the reigning champion, Alan Minter. Hagler had promised not to leave the decision in the hands of the judges. After 7 long years and 3 brutal rounds, marvelous Marvin Hagler had won the middleweight title. Yet even in victory, a hostile British crowd hurled bottles rather than accolades at the new champion. With each defense, his image grew. On October 3rd, 1981, in his 3rd defense, Hagler was deadly accurate. He pitched an 11-round shutout of Mustafa Hamsho. The 55 stitches administered to the challenger have now become a grotesque reminder of Hagler's dominance. A year later, Fulgencio Oval Mejias had risen from the depths of the previous loss to the middleweight champion. This deadly right hand may have been Hagler's most devastating one-punch knockout of his career. Fully Oval would not return again. February 11th, 1983, in his 6th defense, a tough Brit, Tony Simpson, fought hard for 6 rounds. But marvelous Marvin was just too strong. In typical Hagler fashion, the #1 challenger was beaten into the canvas. November 10th, 1983, marvelous Marvin Hagler took on the legendary Roberto Duran. It has been said that the champion gave the challenger too much respect. But in the end, after 15 rounds, Hagler had won the unanimous decision. He had his long-awaited recognition as a dominant middleweight champion. But by not winning convincingly, Hagler had left a hint of doubt. last defense was October 19, 1984. Remarkably, Mustafa Hamsho had returned as the #1 contender. His reward was more punishment from the champion. This time it lasted only 3 rounds as the undisputed middleweight champion, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, restored his image as one of the most powerful forces in boxing today.
No longer is he called the Motor City Cobra. He has returned as Thomas, the Hitman Hearns.
Thomas Hearns exploded from the Motor City with a ferocity rarely seen in the sport of boxing. As the WBA welterweight champion, his lethal combinations destroyed challengers like Pablo Baez. After 32 consecutive wins, a dream match had been made. The showdown of September 16, 1981 will live on as a classic. Hearns took the early lead from Sugar Ray Leonard, but in the 6th, the gutsy WBC champion had Thomas in desperate trouble. The tide had turned. Remarkably, Hearns outboxed Leonard in rounds 8 through 12. And here in the 11th, it was Leonard who was struggling to survive with a battered left eye. Then in the 14th, ahead on all 3 scorecards, Thomas Hearns had suffered his first defeat. But after climbing in weight, the Hitman bounced back. It was on February 27, 1982 that Hearns stopped a tough middleweight, Marcus Geraldo, in the first round. Geraldo had gone the distance with Hagler. And then, 9 months later, Hearns met Wilfred Benitez head-on for the WBC Super Welterweight title. The challenger pressed the defensive champion all night, picking his shots and scoring effectively. In the words of his trainer, Emanuel Stewart, he had outboxed the boxer. Hearns had also fought the later rounds with a broken right hand. But after 15 rounds, Thomas Hearns had won the majority decision. The Hitman had regained his pride and his status in boxing. 7 months later, Hearns stepped up in weight to meet a former light heavyweight contender named Murray Sutherland. Weighing 157.5 pounds, the Hitman once again proved his worth as a boxer. Sutherland later confided that he was hurt in the final round, calling Hearns a powerful middleweight puncher. Thomas called this fight a great test, stating, "It showed I belong in this division." It was hard to disagree. After crushing Duran in 2 brutal rounds, Thomas Hearns again successfully defended his WBC Super Welterweight title with a 3rd-round knockout of Fred Hutchings. The rebirth of the Hitman has struck fear in the boxing world as Thomas Hearns seeks his 3rd world title. It brings us to the fight. Both champions are peaking and both are determined.
We feel that the jab is going to be the key factor in the fight, the left hand, because we feel that if once we can get Marvin to watch the left jab, get his mind on the left hand, then there will be no problem with getting other shots off.
Hearns' best defense is his offense, because that's the only way that he knows how to fight. In my way, I have to make my defense my best offense. So, and though that I have both ways, because once I get him in trouble, I can change it around. Thomas don't have that ability.
I'm here to show the world that I have the ability to punch and power, to get in there and knock out middleweights, light heavyweights, whatever, welterweights, all the way up to the lightweight division. I have that power.
I have my mind focused on one thing, and that's to destroy him. That is to knock him out. If I have the opportunity, if it's there, I'm going to take it.
I think that this fight here will put me in a position to make greatness and put me one step closer to greatness, and which is to win the 4 titles.
That's what I feel. War. That's what's on my mind.
I don't see the fight going 12 rounds.
I've been feeding the faith, and I've been starving the doubt. So there's no doubt in my mind that I can't win this fight, or that I won't knock Thomas Hearns out.
And war is right. Hagler is still rankled at the cancellation 2 years ago by Hearns. They train differently. An old-time fighter, Hagler. He trains at Provincetown on Cape Cod. Then he went to Palm Springs and closed his workouts to the public. Hearns came into Miami Beach and then moved right in here to Caesar's Palace and had open sessions. In fact, he led Arabic dancing in the ring with 6 beauties there. It sort of reminds you of Muhammad Ali in his training days. But they're all set now. They want to get to it, and we're going to get right down to ringside to Al Michaels and Al Bernstein.
All right, Kurt. Well, everybody's been talking about it. Hearns has certain hand speed and the jab and power and all of that, and Hagler is more resolute. And there are a million different factors involved here, and that's why there's been so much talk about who will win. For each man to win, what has to happen? What's the key for each man?
I think for Thomas Hearns, he wants to establish his jab. It's very important, and be able to drop the right hand in. He thinks that he can do that against Hagler, and he thinks that he can keep Hagler on the outside by doing that. For Marvin Hagler, the key is to get by that jab, not just get by it, but get inside and then work to the body of that man, Thomas Hearns, and then eventually get to the head. I think the wild card is, will Marvin Hagler switch to righty effectively? If he does that, it might be the key to a victory for him.
As is customary, it is the challenger who enters first. It is Hagler's title. Even though Tommy has won 2 titles, he does not own the middleweight crown that he seeks tonight, and thus he is the first to come in. And the long wait is over, as accompanied by the entourage. He is out of the dressing room and about ready to enter the arena. He's been lighthearted, basically. Kurt talking about the aerobic dancing and bringing folks into the ring and the open sparring sessions and open workouts. Quite serious right now, though, is Thomas Hearns.
And appropriately entering the ring to hail to the victors the Michigan fight song.
Still not in view of most here in the arena yet is Hearns, so no response as yet, but very shortly he will be approaching that part of the arena here at Caesar's Palace just about now, where they're beginning to take notice of the entry of Thomas Hearns as he comes down the aisle.
The second time Thomas Hearns has had this kind of situation. The last time, of course, against Sugar Ray Leonard. He hopes this turns out differently.
Now he's spotted. Up the steps he comes, and into the ring he comes. Thomas Hearns. The only loss, of course, to Sugar Ray Leonard back in 1981, a fight in which he was ahead.
He had shown his boxing skills in that fight against Leonard, and many think they may come into play tonight. If Hagler would hurt him early, as Leonard did, that man, Thomas Hearns, has the speed to get on his bicycle and duplicate what he did against Leonard, at least for a certain portion of those fights. He'd like a first-round knockout here. He says he'll do it in 3. We'll see.
Took Duran out in 2.
After the fight, we will have it entered.
Thomas Hearns in the ring and awaiting Marvin Hagler, who loves to, among other things, make people wait.
He is renowned. As you see, the very able corner of Thomas Hearns. And you know, when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard, Al, there was criticism of Emmanuel Stewart. Normally a very calm corner for Thomas Hearns. On that night, the most pressure-packed of his career, there was some chaos in that corner. Emmanuel says, we learned from our mistakes with Leonard, and we feel we've got it all together now.
I'm curious as to the response when Hagler comes in. I thought it was sort of muted in a way. There was some cheering for Hearns, but nothing outrageous by any stretch of the imagination. Could just be a muted crowd right now. We're going to find out.
It's possible, or in fact, Hagler is the favorite of the crowd. Yeah. Which would be odd, considering that, as you said, the betting money is switched back and forth. And if you talk to, as I said, if you talk to any 10 people, you're going to find 5 for Hearns, 5 for Hagler. So it's been a very divided group of people here in Las Vegas, and I suspect around the country.